So today we'll be going over what we learned, which is 1-3 order of operations and the classification of numbers, I believe, or yeah, it's called irrational numbers, but I just decided that we would just classify numbers. Anyway, let's get started. So first of all, order of operations. I feel like a lot of you guys learned it as that. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. However, that's really not as accurate as it could be. So first of all, multiplication and division, they're done at the same time. They're done in whichever way, whichever order they're in. So for example, 5 times 4 divided by 6. As long as you do everything correctly, then there's nothing wrong. For example, you can't do 4 divided by 6 first, because it isn't in parentheses, so you really just do it in the order that it's in. So this would equal 20 divided by 6, 10 over 3, or 3 and 1/3. However, you cannot, I believe, wait. 4 divided. Actually, you can. Since multiplication and division, they're actually at the same level, just like addition and subtraction are. As long as you do all of it, you're going to get the right answer. So 4 divided by 6, that's 2/3. 2/3 times 5, you still get 3 and 1/3. So you can do it in whichever order, but you have to realize that you have to do parentheses, exponents before you do multiplication and division. They're at the same level. You don't do multiplication first. You do multiplication and division at the same time. Same thing with addition and subtraction. They're also the exact same. So 5 plus 4 minus 6. As long as you do all of it, you're fine. So 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 minus 6 is 3. 4 minus 6 is -2. 5 plus -2 is also 3. I believe something like this, you can't. Yeah. So for example, here, if you were to do this part first, 4 minus 6 is 2. -2. -2 is 7. However, that's not the correct answer. You have to do it from left to right. So, if my advice is to just go from left to right, and then do PEMDAS, but except just the P, the M and D at the same level, A and S at the same level. Just do from left to right, kind of have to jump around if there are parentheses and stuff first. I just wanted to point out that multiplication and division, they're at the same level. And let's actually look at the acronym and what it means. The first one, P, is parentheses, stands for parentheses, so you do whatever is inside the parentheses first. So, whether that be addition or multiplication, whatever is inside parentheses first. The next thing are exponents, so x to the second, to the nth, stuff like that. Exponents you do second. Then you do multiplication and division. That you do addition If there aren't any, you just skip. For example, in 5, in 1, actually 1 plus 5, how about 1 plus 5, there are no parentheses, so you skip that step. No exponents, you skip that step. There are no multiplication and division, you skip that step. And subtract 1 plus 5. In mind, anyway, with that in mind, let's do this problem. Times 6. Yeah, whatever. Let's just do that problem first. Just pause the video, do the thing if I'm not giving you enough time. Video now, because I'm going to do it in like, what, 3 seconds? 1, 2. Let's do this. So first of all, we're going to the acronym. Are there parentheses? No. Are there exponents? No. Is there multiplication or division? Yes, we do that first. 30. There more? Any more? No. Now, addition and subtraction. You add that and you get 35. If you were not to follow the rules, you might have gotten 60. You always multiply before you add, unless the addition is in parentheses. Let's try one with parentheses. Let's do 5 times 2 plus 3. The answer to this problem is 25. Whatever is in parentheses first. Let's go to the acronym actually. P parentheses. Alright, 2 plus 3 is 5. Then we check for exponents. There are no exponents. And then we check for multiplication and division. There are multiplication here. 25. Alright, let's try another one. 16 minus 4 plus 4. You got 16, you'd be correct. Our parentheses do that first. For everything else, there's only addition. So you have to realize that addition and subtraction are at the same level. So you can take away those parentheses. However, you have to realize that each is its own term. For example, minus 5 minus 5. You have to realize that each minus 5 is its very own term. If you were to do this side first, you would get 10 minus 5 minus 5, and you get 10. The correct way to do this would be from left to right. 5 is 5, minus 5 is 0. Keep that in mind when doing the subtraction. learn exponents in 2 weeks, I believe, or 1 week. I don't know. So, anyway, now we're going to do classification of numbers. There are 6 categories, I believe. The first one is whole. Actually, you know what? Let's integers, numbers, irrational, irrational, non-terminating, non-terminating, and terminating. Abbreviate term. So integers are any number that does not have a decimal point, excluding. Actually, no, integers. Yeah, integers are just any number that doesn't have a decimal point. For example, -5 doesn't have a decimal point. 16 doesn't have a decimal point. 0 does not have a decimal point. And that really covers the main parts. And fractions that can be simplified into decimals, but that have decimal points, those are not integers. For example, 1/3 is 0.333 repeating, and that's actually not an integer because there are decimal points, even though in a fraction, 1 is an integer and so is 3, but in decimal form, 1/3 is not an integer. For whole numbers are just positive integers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Numbers are numbers, I think they're also called natural numbers, or, well, no, I believe whole numbers include 0. Alright, yeah. Actually, whole numbers include 0, and also 0. However, natural numbers do not. Actually, we need to fit natural somewhere. Natural. They're just whole numbers without 0. The next one, rational numbers. Rational numbers are just any numbers that can be written as a fraction. So that includes basically any number you've seen so far. -1000/6. -15. 0. 1/3. Any number that can be written as a fraction. So, for example, 5 can be written as 5. I can't really think of irrational numbers that you would know. Maybe, yeah, other than pi. Pi cannot be written as a fraction. However, pi, yeah, I believe you'll have to learn pi sometime as well. But irrational numbers are actually really common in algebra. For example, the square root of 2. In fact, most square roots, cube roots, all of those, most of them are irrational. You can't write them in a fraction. Non-terminating numbers, those terminating means to end. So non-terminating numbers are numbers that don't end. For example, 1/3. You can't write that as a decimal without using the bar above the threes. So we call 1/3 a non-terminating number. fractional, let's do pi. There's Euler's number. 2 non-terminating numbers, 1/3, ninth. So I guess something like that. Terminating numbers, it's basically just any number that ends. Like, they're 1.4563 is a terminating number because it ends at just that. Or 1.999 all the way to like 10,000. That's also a terminating number because it ends at some point. However, things like 1/3, you can't write that as a decimal point because at 0.3, there are infinite amounts of 3 in 1/3. So terminating numbers, they include 1 point. Like that. So let's actually do a practice problem. What classifications would you give to the number 3? Alright, if you said integer, you said natural, rational, you'd be correct. I don't think I'm missing anything, but 3 is all of those. You have to say all of them to be correct. Same thing with the homework. If you forget to check one of the boxes, it counts as an incorrect answer. What about negative 11? If you answered as integer, I think that's it. You'd be correct. Yeah. For negative 11, it is an integer. It doesn't have a decimal point. It's rational. It can be written as negative 11 over 1. It's terminating. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It ends after just 2 ones. Also, I didn't like prepare these, so if I forget one of them, just like chat me or something, and I can like fix it or something. Let's try 1/4. Actually, negative 1/4. Let's try that. What classification would you give it? You said, oh, it's definitely rational, and terminating, you'd be correct. It's rational. It can be written as negative 1 over 4, which it is as right now, and it's terminating. That's negative 0.25. Is 1/3. You answered rational, terminating, you'd be correct. 1/3 is written as 0.33333 and it doesn't end. So that's, I think, all the practice you need. Actually, we need to go over something real quick. 0. What is 0? 0 is an integer number. It is also a rational number. And it's also a terminating number. It's not a natural number. It's not irrational. And it's also not non-terminating. The last thing I want to go over is that there is another classification of numbers that I'm not going to talk about this week, this course, because we won't get introduced to these numbers until maybe Algebra 2. And these are imaginary numbers. They're real numbers. They are, integers, rational, so on. And they're imaginary numbers. There aren't any, but imaginary numbers are numbers that can't be written. The only one that I can think of is I. I is equal to the square root of -1. And we'll learn about why this is an imaginary number, but I is an imaginary number. That's supposed to be like a lowercase I. Anyway, I is an imaginary number, and that's the only imaginary number I believe that I know of. Of course, I don't think you guys will know any imaginary numbers. And yeah, just to be clear, imaginary numbers cannot be graphed also. They cannot be, for example, I is not a real number, so you can't put it on the number line. But, for example, an irrational number like pi, it's about 3.14, so you can put it somewhere between 3.1 and 3.2. It is on the graph. It's just not very clear where it is on the graph. But I, you can't put on the graph. But we won't really talk about imaginary numbers, as it's not as important to Algebra 1 as other numbers are. And yeah, that's it. The homework is in Google Classroom. I will not be here on Thursday because I have a trip that I have to go to. Everything will be in Classroom. There will be the video, the homework, and on the Friday there will be a test. So you'll do that and in class, and then that'll be it for this week. This has been the third class, so congratulations to everyone that did their homework, and I hope to see you on Friday. Actually, wait, also, like tomorrow, we were gonna watch the Thursday video, so, yeah.